Everybody, whatever time zone you're in. It's always so precious to see people entering into our shared practice space. So just as people are arriving, let's just sit together for 10 minutes tonight. So Please join me in saying the verse of the robe. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Well, it's very lovely to see you all. Um, I seem to have, there we go. There's something so, I don't, it's a very odd word, endearing to me. I feel like you're all coming into my front room when I'm sitting in this seat. So I'm so grateful for you all being here. And having the opportunity to just share some kind of things that I've been thinking about, some thoughts. And I was very touched by Suzanne's talk last week about suffering and love, and she offered us a line from the Rosemary Watola Trommer's poem, a little bit of it which really caught me, which was to be ridiculously courageous in love. What a wonderful invitation to be ridiculously courageous in love, because it probably is rather ridiculous to love, in to love and know that love will probably make us vulnerable. And that's the courage part. For me, it feels like that's the real courage part. And they seem such resonant and persistent themes in our lives and our practice. And, you know, given the endless suffering we're seeing every day and, you know, the tragedies that befall on a seemingly daily basis, you know, I can really feel how we're all dancing on these edges of opening and closing to love and compassion and connection all the time. And we might have real habit energies about how we deal with those sorts of things. And I've been thinking a lot about compassion lately, and how we might find a way not to polarize, you know, not to polarize in our difficult world, to choose to live from a courageous heart at a time when it can seem all too very easy to have villains and victims. Where the might of the state seems to be siding with those who have access to so much against those who have so much less or look different from the powerful. And I was very caught with this line from Master Shang Yen. Compassion has no enemies. Wisdom is not troubled. Compassion has no enemies, and wisdom is not troubled. And when I first heard it, I could really sort of feel the way in my body, it sort of really, I could move more readily into that first proposition. Compassion has no enemies. The sense of nobody being essentially different, and how, you know, how I don't want to be my own enemy. And when I'm in a space of no separation, there can be no one who's my enemy, because in emptiness there's no good or evil, just things as a perfect expression of what is. And then wisdom is not troubled. And the many more manager parts of me had a slightly stronger reaction to that. You know, what could you possibly mean, wisdom is not troubled? And Sheng Yen talks about kleshas, as does Pema Chodron, or vexations. I love that word, vexations. And in a non-spacious place, I can feel the many vexations that assail me and that I can cling to. And I imagine that might be true for others. You know, the oh so many vexations of our lives. And by vexations, Master Shang meant both external things that can trouble us, microbes that can make us unwell, could be vexations. Having not enough to eat could be a vexation, but also he really talks about the vexations of our troubled minds. And he says, another source of our vexations is our own emotional turmoil. Our greatest enemy is not to be found on the outside. We are bothered most by our own minds. Our feelings constantly change. We may move from arrogance to regret, from joy to sorrow, but never look at something in the same way as time passes. We're in conflict with ourselves. We worry about gain and loss, right and wrong, and we cannot decide what to do. This is the true misery. It is only when there is no grasping or rejecting that there will be neither lack nor excess. He's pointing to that place where we aren't grasping or rejecting or deluded, a place that we have an endless opportunity to practice within our sitting and in sharing the Dharma with our Sangha, with our friends, with trying to understand our own minds and our habit energies and where we go and the things we decide are troubles. There's a very lovely children's book, sadly I think mostly out of print now, but it's called Jenna and the Troublemaker by Haiwan Oram. And the basic story is there's an old troublemaker who manufactures troubles in his troubles workshop. And then he kind of randomly distributes them about. And one night, after doing his job of distributing his troubles, he hears a small girl inconsolably sobbing, and he pops his head over the window and he says to her, "What's wrong?" And she pointed to all the various troubles in her room, but she said she'd been completely overwhelmed by a new trouble, a little red trouble dancing on the mantelpiece. Freckles, freckles. How was it? How was it? Too much. She couldn't cope. And the troublemaker, though a strong man, had a heart, and he told her to meet him in a field outside later. And when she went there, he'd bagged up everyone's troubles into bags and thrown them into a giant heap. And he took Jenna's bag of troubles and he tossed it into the pile. And then he said, "But you do have to choose another bag, as everyone has troubles." And Jenna spent a long time going through the heap and opening each bag, but each bag she found was awful. It's appalling. Like Jimmy's bag is terrible, and Fred's bag is really heavy, and poor Judy's bag is just even heavier, and they were all awful. And she spent a long time looking until she found a bag. Oh, I can live with this one. And she picked it up and she skipped off, and the bag felt quite light. And the bag was her own troubles. She'd claimed them back, like these were the ones she knew how to be with. And I was thinking, and I'd had a conversation with someone recently about perhaps if we own our vexations, perhaps if we say, these are the troubles I seem to carry with me, perhaps if we can avow them, we can carry them with care, and they might not be so difficult. There's a possibility. And then as I was exploring all of this topic, I read a piece by David Loy from 2013. And he talks about the vexations as arising from the three poisons of greed, ill will, and delusion. And then he really locates them as being endemic in our Western culture. And I was really curious as to what he'd be saying kind of 12 years further on, and how many troublemakers we have now. And he says our present economic system institutionalizes greed, our militarism institutionalizes ill will, and the corporate media institutionalizes delusion. He says the Buddha didn't say much about evil, the roots of evil, but he spoke about what he sometimes called the three roots of evil. He didn't talk about evil much, but he talked about the roots of evil, and also known as the three poisons: greed, ill will, and delusion. His understanding of karma emphasized the role of these intentions, that what we do when it's motivated by greed, ill will, or delusion, suffering results. Today we have not only much more powerful technologies, we also have much more powerful institutions which operate according to their own logic and motivations. And these can be quite different from the personal motivations of the people who work for them. And he goes on to explore how our financial institutions are invested in persuading us that we can never have enough. We can never spend enough. We can never get enough. We can never have enough. And how are protecting what we have with ill will, with militarization towards others, and selling weapons to our allies to help them protect what they have and possibly get a little more. That's enshrined in what we do, the militarization of ill will, and how we live now in what we're sort of fairly readily calling a post-truth environment. It's really hard to get any kind of clear picture about what's unfolding. And our media, our newscasters on the whole, don't seem to be invested in telling us what's actually going on. Those are what we live with. It's not just inside us, it's also the culture we inhabit. And then I thought about the chant we offer when we meet, and how we avow that we all carry our shared, ancient, tangled, or twisted karma, And a key aspect of that it's beginningless. Didn't begin with us. It's not going to end with us. And however far back we look, this endless flow of greed, hate and delusion, the vexations, have always woven into human experience. And right now, in the advent of social media, we can see in real time horrors and violence unfolding, the very acts of greed, hate and delusion. And then I'm really aware that actually in my actual life, mostly recently, I haven't experienced actual violence, and I imagine there might be people here who have, but I haven't. But my phone and my television are full of them, and many of them are no longer fictional. And as Suzanne said last week, we all have a negativity bias as a survival strategy. So this cultural weight towards the three poisons and the unfolding of the exercise of power over and deep discrimination can lead us down a very dark road where there are many enemies and many vexations. And Suzanne offered a really useful physical grounding and shifting process to bring together love and suffering. And so I'd like to continue that exploration as well of how we might open to the possibility of a space of compassion, of having no enemies, and wisdom being untroubled. So here's an offering from the wonderful Adrienne Rich. She says, "My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world." And here we sit with no extraordinary power. How might we reconstitute the world? I went to a very inspiring talk with Rebecca Solnit at Upaya on Sunday. And one of the things that they were talking about was the kind of narratives that we lean into. And we're surrounded by these tales of endless woe and endless disaster stories we tell and are told that foster impotence or rage or hopelessness. And they were talking about what are the many stories of love and kindness and connection and sacrifice. And it really made me think, because I was brought up near Liverpool, which was a place, especially in the 80s, probably still to a degree, characterised by the idea of the scally, the rough. It was a very rough place, Liverpool, when I was growing up. There were very militant union workers on the docks, and it was a place seen as hard living and hard playing. It was poor, and it was very far from the centre of culture in London. And in 1989, there was a terrible disaster where 97 Liverpool football fans were crushed to death in a stadium in Sheffield, and 766 were injured. It happened in plain sight, on camera, the trapped and dying behind a high wire fence. We saw it unfolding in real time. The people who were crushed in what was called the pens. And the police fed the all too ready to believe story of fecklessness and hooliganism of the fans to the newspapers, especially the tabloids, which immediately rushed to blame the dying and the injured and the survivors. And stories were told of drunkenness and hooliganism and greed from the fans. And it took years. There was an inquiry not that long ago of several major inquests and major national inquiries before it was established that the police actions, as well as their lack of appropriate actions, had resulted in the crush, and the fans had absolutely no part in its genesis. None. And yet that story of hooliganism persisted for over 30 years. And in 1995, at the beginning of my counselling, I was very peripherally involved with supporting one of the many women who were pushing for the truth to emerge, a Liverpudlian woman who'd been immediately impacted by it. And against this story of hooliganism and drunkenness and fecklessness, I heard other stories. Stories of courage on the day, of sacrifice, of children pushed over the fence to survive whilst fathers and brothers didn't, of the enormous coming together of a broken community. Liverpool Football Club was central to the identity of Liverpool. It broke so many people. And that broken community came together to support hundreds, indeed thousands of the people affected. You know, there were soup kitchens and money raised to support families where the breadwinner had died or been hospitalised or injured or mentally traumatised. Of widows and bereaved parents coming together in sorrow and this deep, deep determination for their lost loved ones to be relieved of the burden of shame and fault that they had been so landed with. And they didn't stop in their quest for justice, for truth. This very different narrative before the truth publicly emerged. And that affected me really deeply. These other stories, these other narratives of this very, very public disaster. And I saw kind of at first, secondhand, the power of officially led ignorance. And how many of us want to turn away and not really lean into the failures of the very systems we believe are our bulwark against chaos, even when we can see those systems moving into oppression and harm. So how do we challenge, how do we support ourselves against the current dominant narrative to find a place where compassion has no enemies? Where we can counter, as he says, institutionalized greed, ill will, and delusion. He says maybe if the Buddha is correct that greed, ill will, and delusion are the causes of our suffering, and if indeed we have institutionalized them, these are matters for deep and urgent concern. Has awakening to the nature of these three institutional poisons become just as important as the individual awakening that Buddhism traditionally emphasizes? And I was thinking of Buddhist action now that happens from Appamada, and there is a real sense of actually we don't just turn away, we find a way to meet it. So that's part of how we inquire into our own habits that cause unnecessary suffering and into the ways, the narratives that we can choose to share. What do we choose to share? What do I read? What do I see? What do I think the narrative is serving? Is it kindness? Is it goodwill? Is it enoughness? Is it compassion? And if it isn't serving that, what are the antidotes to these poisons? On Sunday, Roshi Joan quoted Joshu being asked, how do we meet catastrophe? And he replied, welcome, welcome. And in another story, one day, Master Joshu was outside the monastery and he saw an old woman hoeing a field. He asked her, what would you do if you suddenly met a fierce tiger? She looked up and replied, nothing in this world frightens me, and turned back to her hoeing. Joshu roared like a lion. She looked up and roared right back at him. And Joshu said, there's stillness. How can we get to a place where we roar at life? By practicing, by sitting and leaning into the fire of our own being, by seeing through our own ill will and greed and ignorance that we're no different from anybody who has ever lived. There is no separation. So what is there to fear? And my small self could give you a rather long list. But there's another place that says, what else could we fear? And what do we do when we can't roar back? Well, we carry on with hoeing, just like the old woman. Just carry on doing what we do in the space we live in. How do we tell ourselves the narrative that our practice, this just simple act of sitting in silence with ourselves, is enough? that the care we take as we enter the zendo is for the good of all, that refraining from adding to the fires of complaint and hopelessness is wise action, that we continuously support ourselves and each other to meet, as Rebecca Solnit says, to meet the world with life-giving hands, or with courageous, ridiculous love. Not because it'll change the world. It might not while we're breathing. It really might not. But in the practice of 2,000 years of people holding to the Dharma, we practice for all time, not just this now. We practice for the benefit of eternity. And I'd like to finish with a poem from Barbara Kingsolver, Hope, an Owner's Manual. Look, you might as well know, this thing is going to take endless repair. Rubber bands, crazy glue, tapioca, the square of the hypotenuse, 19th century novels, heartstrings, sunrise, all of these are useful. Also feathers. To keep it humming, sometimes you have to stand on an incline where everything looks possible, on the line you drew yourself, or in the grocery line making faces at a toddler, secretly, over his mother's shoulder. You might have to pop the clutch and run past all the evidence, past everyone who is laughing or praying for you. Definitely you don't want to go directly to jail, but still, here you go, passing time, passing strange. Don't pass this up. In the worst of times, you will have to pass it off. Park it and fly by the seat of your pants. With nothing in the bank, you'll still want to take the express. Tiptoe past the dogs of the apocalypse that are sleeping in the shade of your future. Pay at the window. Pass your hope like a bad check. You might still have enough time to make a deposit. So in the time we have, maybe there's something you'd like to share, some courage you've experienced, some vexations that need some witness or care to sit with. I'd love to meet with you. Hi, Mary.
Thank you, Trudy. Everything that you've shared, it just resonates in my heart. And one of the things that I sometimes get torn between is that complete open-heartedness and meeting with love and and to a point where perhaps it does harm to me because of my own delusion of, and it's interesting, I'm turning inside of like my own delusion, and I'm going to say like my greed for love. All right, I don't know if that makes sense. Like it feels oftentimes like there's a desperate hole, a part of me. It's young, and um and I'm aware of her, but that, so like when you offer this, and then I can be my own militant. I'm talking about all of this within me, all right, and practicing with that to the point of, like, oh, it's not that bad, this delusion of, underneath there's self in that person. This is just a part that is coming forward, and again, sort of this, but again, these are and so then it's like, yeah, it's difficult.
It is, isn't it? And I was so appreciating you naming it so kind of clearly. And there's a slightly unfortunate phrase, so um, I hope it doesn't offend, which is not practicing idiot compassion. I didn't coin that one, but there's this idea of idiot compassion, which is a sort of self-serving compassion. You
Yeah.
know, it lets others off the hook, it lets us off the hook. It's kind of, it's not got wisdom and discrimination in it.
Okay.
And without wisdom and discrimination, there's there's another little phrase from Facebook which is block and bless. You know, if like
Yeah.
someone's giving you a really hard time, block and bless. Um, so there's something about this sense of how do we genuine, you know, everyone has Buddha nature. Uh, Most people don't wake up in the morning and think they're going to be bad. I mean, like they really don't. People believe in what they're doing, often
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
passionately.
Mm-hmm.
But, but what they're doing is coming from a place of deep separation.
Okay.
And so, how do we sit with that? How do we stay, as you say, you know, open-hearted, courageously loving, and be able to discriminate and say, maybe I can withdraw from this situation, or maybe I can take care of myself? When is it being driven by that little one's need for love?
When her brother, she still wants that and it's fine. But yeah, and I got kind of drawn into, just the delusion. Oh, he's good. He's been good for 3 years. He's not harmful. So thank you. Thank you. Um, thank you. That is so, and when you're so close to it like this, it's hard to unblend there.
And
But
that's why we need each other, isn't it? You know,
yes,
because our habit energy, our needs are going to drive us, and have a wise friend who says, maybe just pause a little.
yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh, my heart just opened up a little bit. I felt it kind of. Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for having a courageous heart. Mm. Mm. It's Cassie, Cassie. Mm.
I saw Mary's heart open up. I saw the little girl shine, just shine. And I told myself that I wasn't going to come forward today. I was going to hold space for other people. And yet I had to express the joy of the interaction that y'all just had. So a bow to that.
Mm.
Um, and then since I'm here, uh,
And I'm
several
glad
lines.
you are. Just
Go
take a
ahead.
second. I'm glad you are.
Oh, thank you. Um, I'm going to listen to this several times because so many of the things that you said resonated with me so deeply, but I was not in the headspace of taking notes. Uh, um, but the line that did land in me in a repeated way was coming from a place of deep separation.
Yeah.
Ooh, um, I know that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a default location. Um, and I can feel myself like leaning into the screen. Like I can feel the bodied sensation of closeness.
Yeah. So noticing how separation is a habit, that, well, the belief, because of course we
The
never are,
idea,
but
yeah.
you know, the sweet delusion we carry, the sweet, painful, tortuous delusion that we're not the same, that
Yeah.
we're,
Or was just cast out. Yeah.
yep.
And uh, I said this last night in the Vimalakirti class, but and of course the Vimalakirti just, cuts through all of it. But um, like I have shame right now because I can see all my boxes that I'm in the process of moving around and getting things settled. And so I feel like I'm not, um, I'm showing my mess.
Thank God.
That's a hard one to show your mess. I mean, I do it all the time, but I mean,
Really? And that's it?
well, there's more. Like if you keep, I have this narrow little pathway right now to the chair, and it just drives me nuts. But I keep putting something else in front of it, I've got to do a little job. I've got to, take care of mom.
Yeah. And who, I mean, I'd love if we could do like, a chatterful. Is there anybody here who doesn't have any mess? Like, I'm just really curious. I'm sitting here thinking I'm way too pink, it's like
Uh,
we just rock up, don't we, with our stuff
Your
from
stuff.
beginningless, beginningless. Nobody hasn't got stuff.
And the courageous part, the courageous love part. I feel like I have a reputation of being courageous, but I don't feel that internally.
Yeah.
And I know my practice edge around courageousness and love is um I'd like to be braver
Yeah.
or more vulnerable.
Yeah, maybe that's because my sense is people often don't feel their own attributes.
Yeah.
So people see courage doesn't mean you feel it.
Yeah.
Because courage might be coming from that quivery, look at my mess place, or, I don't think we feel courageous,
Right.
but
No.
we show up.
Yeah.
So
So,
people see courage rather than you feeling it.
mm, I do show up.
You do.
So, thank you.
And thank you for that. I appreciate you showing up. You can see Ben. There you are. Think you're in? There
That's
you go.
better. Thank you, Trudy, for that. And Cassie, as always, the the very mess that you're talking about, well, Cassie was talking about, is currently my nemesis. So I am currently out in Spain, in my new place, and just noticing how much of my old conditioning is kicking back in. And I'd forgotten, because I'd not lived in a place of my own for so long, the obsessive nature of trying to keep things from degrading, and clinging to, trying to make perfection. And I know exactly where it comes from. I understand the psychodynamic building blocks of it. I know what parts are playing out. I know what I'm trying to get. from
So,
doing.
so what's stopping you enjoying your obsessiveness?
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
You just
I thought
see,
you were going to say what's stopping you from enjoying this experience, and I was going to say that. Um,
this is your
but
experience right now.
yeah, it is because somehow I feel like it's wrong, or I should be enjoying it more, or
So
it's a
what
yeah.
if mess has no enemies?
Mm,
You know, there's something about um, the narrative you've got round it,
yeah.
rather than, oh God, I'm a really picky bugger, aren't I? You know, like,
I mean, right now, I mean that normally changes over time, but it's what I learnt at a very early age. We had a best room in the house. Everything else was pretty much chaos, but my parents had the best room where you weren't allowed in.
yeah,
Everything was kept perfect. Um, and I know it's the wrong currency and trying to trade this for, to create my own security and feeling of lack. Um, but yeah, I like the idea of why not enjoy your mess? Why not enjoy your, perfectionist tendencies? I think the one thing is it can be exhausting.
yeah.
So I
So
have to,
rest. You can
yeah,
rest.
I need to do more of that now. Things are, mostly done. Um, but
So it's like what I kind
mm,
of feel like is it's almost like there's a part of you that kind of thinks you should have moved in there perfectly, as in not with perfection. You know, like just
yeah,
easy. Oh, and it's like your whole
yeah,
system is somewhere completely new. You're making
yeah,
something, I imagine, quite often on your own. Um,
yes.
and so yeah, hello habits.
Mm, yeah, and it's true. Some of it I have really enjoyed, you
Yeah.
know. And other bits I've been critical about because it's like, but I bought some amazing tropical plants, so I'm like twice a day I'm hosing them and feeding them and looking after them, and so there are some real bright spots in there, but
And
yeah, just
there are some things that are more than you there. Things
say a
you
little bit.
things you need to take care of. That's not just Ben.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. I think that's true, and it feels good. Yeah, it feels nourishing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I've completely forgotten we're on inquiry and we're not on our own little Zoom call. So, thank you to everybody for listening, and thank you to you, Trudy, and we'll speak tomorrow.
Thank you, Ben. Enjoy your plants and your mess.
So,
See, Catherine.
I enjoyed that. Hi, I just had to keep doing that. Um, I enjoyed that exchange.
Me too.
Enjoyed you, Ben, and and just the idea that there's nothing we have to make wrong.
Yeah.
I've got perfectionist tendencies, you will be surprised to know.
Shock
Um,
horror.
and actually, I've come to the point, Ben, where I think, well, they're very, very useful. because if someone's coming, my perfectionist tendencies and my wish to be loved mean that I have to tidy up and everything's got to be whatever. And so it gets done.
Yeah,
So provided it's kept within a wider place, what's not to like?
absolutely. You have a beautiful house. You are such an exquisite hostess. You know, people benefit from your neuroses.
Yes, exactly. And provided you can keep them in a big space,
They're
so that
not driving the bus.
they're not driving the bus, but they're the wheels.
Yeah,
Um, there's no problem, is there? I think that's what I'm taking from what you've said. There's no problem if
it's like,
things are held if things are held in that big place.
yeah, that, you know, wisdom has no troubles. It's not that there aren't troubles. You know, life has suffering in it. It's the Buddha's teaching. But actually, how do we hold them lightly, or how do we use them as Dharma gates? How do we use them to connect with all, you know, all of us with our different crazy tendencies, you know? I long for a bit of perfectionism. Probably, I think Josh would probably long for a bit of perfectionism from me. But
A lot's about how you label them, isn't it? How you allow yourselves to think about them.
what's that story? What's that story? And when the story gets fixed and rigid,
Or when
then
you take on the stories of other people.
yeah,
So in terms of my looking after John, some people want to say, how terrible, this is awful, it must be terrible for you. And it's difficult, but it's more difficult if you take on that kind of language about it.
absolutely,
I think that really matters
absolutely.
because then you don't see the jewel.
So you don't see the gifts that come with caring deeply for someone you love,
Yeah, like the
and
plant,
like the plant.
like the plants, like the person. The gift is going beyond self-concern.
Absolutely. Mm. Oh, thank you for your teaching too. Oh, you muted. Just, we didn't catch the last bit. Still muted.
I was going to say it was brought forward by your teaching. There we go.
Thank you. I think we have Genevieve with a few moments together. There you go.
Hi, again with the counting down the seconds. It's a pleasure to do the final countdown with you. That was so moving and said with so much grace, Catherine, that I have absolutely no idea what I might have wanted to say. Except that I'm coming out of this 5 weeks of nausea, so really like incapacitating. And the deeper I go into that, the longer it lasts, the closer I am to death. It's and then when the symptoms recede
Yeah.
or retreat, then I have a broader, realm within which to consider. That's not really what I meant to say. During this time,
There's a I don't know if I'm frozen. I can see Genevieve is frozen. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I'm
Geneva's
sorry.
back.
So,
Great.
I feel like I've been given these little time.
And she's gone again. I guess she's having freezing issues, which happens sometimes with her connection.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad she showed up and it sounds like finding ways to manage. And I was thinking managing pain, managing physical symptoms is a profound Dharma gate, full of possible vexations. So I appreciate her bringing that forward. And I guess we might not have a chance to. Maybe she can hang out in the porch if her connection comes
Yeah,
back.
hopefully.
Yeah, and just taking a moment to see everybody, and I know how deeply it matters to me that people just show up, and that's what our practice is, whether they come forward or not, but just how much support there is for everybody, and how we might find ways to change the narratives, so we're not trapped. End there, and let's say the 4 practice principles together. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. So my deep appreciation to you all, and to Ed for being here and allowing us all to come into the room and spend time together. So I'll hand over to Ed. Thank you so much.
Deep, deep bows and appreciation to you, Trudy, especially for opening the landscapes and the interactions of vexations today. And vexation is a cool word. So thank you deeply for that. And just a reminder to everyone that Appamada's programs facilities are supported by your contributions, and you can go to the website under the contribute section, and you can contribute to Appamada as well as to our teachers and those facilitating inquiry. And we'll be here till for another 30 minutes. If you'd like to stick around, pop yourself in gallery view, and we will welcome you.